Okay, so I want to talk about a big idea with you guys, going back to music and away from Kenya the puppy. I know, Kenya's way more exciting. So, this big idea I want to talk about is the idea that musicians are all connected and they can influence each other, which means they have an effect on each other, or they might copy or learn from each other, even if they lived at different times or played totally different styles. For example, Robert Johnson wrote the song Crossroads. Eric Clapton, 100 years later, did his rock and roll version. They did not live at the same time, and they played different styles of music. Same with Nina Simone. Nina Simone sang the blues a jazzy way. She lived at a different time than Robert Johnson, who sang the blues the original blues way. Now, the question I want you to think about is, how do musicians influence each other between different genres? Think about that question for a second. How do musicians influence each other between different genres? Put on those thinking caps. I'll give you a few seconds just to think about it. Now, I'm sure you have a great answer to that question, or you're forming a great answer. I would love to have a conversation about it with you in class, but since I can't hear your answer right now, I'm just going to show you my version of what I would say to that question. I'm going to use this tree, this chart. It's my musical tree of life, or what is it? The Tree of Musical Genres by Mr. Sarkis. There it is. Okay, so you'll notice with my horrible drawing that the trunk of the tree says folk music. And that's because all the music we're learning comes from, somehow or some way, folk music. It all starts with the music of specific people in specific places. So folk music is the trunk of the tree. Now, we're going to get a little closer. Here on top of the tree, we have Irish, English, Scottish music. You'll remember that bluegrass comes from Irish, English, and Scottish music, and it leads to bluegrass. And then this branch, coming from folk music, is the blues, and it also leads to bluegrass. And then, eventually, the blues, 100 years later, goes to rock and roll, all the way over here. Not sure what that is. Maybe it's like a leaf or a bird nest, but it's rock and roll. So we have Robert Johnson and Bessie Smith, the original blues, and then 100 years later, this branch gets to Eric Clapton. Now, Bill Monroe, the bluegrass singer, learned from these old blues singers, and he also learned from his ancestors that sang European music, Irish, English, Scottish. Now, over to Nina Simone. You might remember Nina Simone originally was a classical pianist, young Nina Simone, classical musician. And then there was the blues over here, and together they combined to make Nina Simone the jazz singer, who also sings folk music, right? She also sings Little Liza Jane, so that's how folk music is connected to everything here. So this is my little chart. Hopefully you can see it okay. This is just an example. This is how I might think of it. I'm sure you have a different way of thinking of it, and that's totally good too. Your version is just as right as mine, because there's a lot of different ways to think about how music is all connected. So, now that you've seen my chart, I want to give you a couple options. I want you to show me how you think music is connected between different genres. So, I want to give you a couple options. If you'd like to make your own chart connecting bluegrass and the blues like I did, or connecting Nina Simone and Bill Monroe, or maybe Eric Clapton and Bill Monroe, like some of the musicians we talked about this whole unit, go for it. Show me in your own words how you understand these musicians and genres to be connected. It's okay if it is different than mine. If you don't want to make a chart, that's fine. Just describe to me in your own words by speaking or typing it on Google Classroom the connections between Bill Monroe, Nina Simone, and the blues, or any of the artists we've talked about. A third option is you can choose different musicians or different genres that we haven't talked about in class yet. So if you want to write about one of your favorite musicians now, that's totally cool. I'll give you some examples of a bigger chart that you could kind of copy and insert your own favorite musicians into if you'd like. But the bottom line is that you are showing me how different musical genres are connected. So here's my chart. Here's my second chart. I made a different one for another example. So on top, this one goes down instead of up. So it starts with folk music, right? On this side, it goes to classical music. Classical music is from folk music. And then it goes to gospel. It goes through spirituals, which also go to gospel. And it goes to the blues. So blues, classical. You combine classical and the blues, more or less, you get jazz. Now all the way over on this side, we have Irish, English, Scottish music, right? And then we have Appalachian folk music, right? And then those go together along with